And we're live. Ask the Podcast Coach for April 6th, 2024.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means it's Saturday morning. It's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jensen from theschoolofpodcasting.com, and joining me right over there, nope, that guy is the one and only Jim Cullison from theaverageguy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Thanks, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. Welcome back after a week. Podcast
Podcast
Evolutions, movement. Why can't I remember that? Why can't I remember that?
It's
anyways, welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. It really is. I actually thought of sending you a message because it dawned on me. I forgot I was on West Coast time, so 10:30 Eastern is 7:30 in the morning. I was awake. I'm like, I could have done Ask the Podcast Coach. I would have been on the slave of hotel Wi-Fi, which is not always a good place to be. But I was like, you know what?
It's okay. It was Easter weekend. I hope everybody had a great Easter weekend. And I ended up having a birthday party to go to anyways. So it all worked out.
Yeah, a fun one, like a grandkid kind of thing.
Almost like an adopted grandkid kind of thing. Like, a family, they were from out of town and they didn't have a lot of family here, so we were their grandparents.
Nice.
So,
That's always fun.
It was fun.
It was fun. I'm laughing because I'm trying to remember where the chat window is. I'm rusty this morning. And you know what really helps when you're feeling rusty?
Some coffee.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so we will hit that. There we go. And that coffee, of course, is brought to you by our good friend Mark over at podcastbranding.co. If you're looking to have artwork made, like, I don't know, your podcastwebsite.com, you know who you're going to call? Mark from podcastbranding.co. If you want personalized service where he's going to sit down with you and make sure that it really fits your show, who are you going to call? That's right, podcastbranding.co. If you need a PDF, if you need an entire website, who are you going to call? Podcastbranding.co. He gives you personalized service. He's also a podcaster, and I know that sounds like no, that's huge because you don't have to explain what it is and things like that. And he's going to just basically keep working until you get the stuff you need, because you got to remember, they are going to see you before they hear you. And you got to stop the scroll. How do you stop the scroll? By looking good, looking professional, because if you do your podcast artwork and whatever, it's going to look like you did it with a crayon, and you don't want to look like a crayon. You want to go to podcastbranding.co and tell them Dave and Jim sent you.
Big thanks to our good friend Dan Lefebvre over there, based on a true story podcast.com. This week, April 1st through the 7th, The Highwaymen, the assassination of Jesse James. That sounds interesting. And Grant. And so hopefully, I always encourage you guys when we take a week off to head over there to catch up or get something new or see how Dan does it. Pro podcaster, and you'll want to check it out today, based on a true story podcast.com. Dan, thanks for your sponsorship.
I'm laughing because behind the scenes, there is a window that I can pull up. Like, if anybody is in YouTube right now saying things, I surely can't find it. I'm looking. I got camera switching and interviews and interview chat. Also,
you can't see the live stream? Is that what you're saying in the comments?
Yeah, usually I have a window open for, maybe I need to go to, it's like I'm so rusty this morning. And I was like, well, usually you open it up and there's the stuff from the last time you used it. And I'm like, yeah, I got nothing. So if there was like an echo right now.
They're just saying you're quieter than me.
I'm quieter than you. All right,
that's the feedback they're giving.
And it's so weird because I'm looking and I got
while you're looking, let me tell folks what I do for this kind of situation, because I think if you're going to live stream with Ecamm or with StreamYard or with any of the other ones, and if you're going to go to YouTube, you probably should just go to your live page that you're streaming on and pop that chat out. It's kind of the easiest way to get chat. I know all of those services have the ability to bring the stream into, like, StreamYard has an area where you can talk back to the audience. I don't know. I don't find it as easy. I don't like it as much. The other thing I can't do is I can't ban folks on like on YouTube. If you start getting some, you get something racist or something pornish, whatever that's out there. You can't delete it. And so I always find if you're streaming to YouTube, always best to have the YouTube chat open, signed in as the owner, so you can boot folks out. I can't do that from StreamYard. I'm not sure if you can do that inside of Ecamm. Dave, could you boot somebody from the chat room inside of Ecamm?
Let's see if I can boot Randy.
See you, Randy.
Yeah, I think there is a way. Everybody's saying
it's just easier on YouTube. It's just easier.
Everybody's saying we're all low, and I don't know that there is a way to boost this whole thing. I'll just get up on the mic. That will help. We do. I'll tell you what. This is how we'll make everything louder. We have now. Here's the fun thing. When you're rusty, is Jeff says, when it comes to those, they're pesky, aren't they? That dang pornish chatters. Yes.
Yeah.
That's always fun.
Well, they call them pornish game hens, right? I think that's the name of them. Yeah.
But Ralph from AskRalphPodcast.com had sent a video in this morning, and I thought, and I went in and I Googled how do you share a video on Ecamm, and kind of got it to work after the picture-in-picture and I went, you know what, I think this will work. And that's when I went, you know what, we know how to do audio comments really easy. And I hope I get no notifications while I do this. But here is Ralph's question. It's a good one. We're going to end up, I've noticed this now, Jim, no matter what we want to do, we're going to end up talking about YouTube. It's just,
yay, YouTube.
It's just the way it is. But here's Ralph.
All right, here's a question for the Ask the Podcast Coach today, because I might not be able to make the whole show today because it's almost April 15th and my business is busy today. But here's the question. I recently released my podcast now on video on YouTube and Rumble. And my question for the two of you guys is, should I really make a strong focus to do more slides and things like that to put on the YouTube and Rumble channel? I don't really see that this will make a negative impact on the podcasting audio side, but I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts because I'm really pushing this and I see my YouTube and Rumble audience growing. And if I'm seeing growth there, it makes sense to invest in that. So just give me some ideas and what do you think the best way to proceed is?
Okay, so a couple things behind the scenes, because Ralph's a member of the School of Podcasting. His show is typically 10 minutes or less. And one of the reasons his show is growing is because there's a thing on YouTube I didn't even know about where you can basically buy, not buying views, but you kind of are. It's a little bit like a Facebook boost, which never do a Facebook boost. But DR says we're only getting the audio, not the video. Yes, that was, did I never not finish my point? Probably not. The reason I stuck with audio is because I know how to do it. When I was kind of like, I think I can do the video, I was like, you know what? But I do know how to do the audio, and we don't really need the video. And so he did pay for sponsorship or some sort of boosting promotion thing on YouTube. So not that his content wouldn't grow it anyway, but the reason it's growing is because he's paying for it. Potentially, he's getting more views with that. And so, and Chris says, hey, Rumble views are extremely low. Yeah, he did say that. But he's also, Ralph is. The reason he's busy, by the way, is because he's a tax accountant. He's an accountant, but he does taxes.
Wish he would do my taxes. I still have to do them.
Yeah,
I've been putting them off. Oh, geez.
And so but his thing is, it's kind of taxing and accounting business advice for people and businesses from a Christian perspective. And I'm like, well, from what I understand, if you're leaning right, which most Christians do. But not always. Don't want to paint with that wide a brush. Rumble might be where you want to be. But getting back to the original question, so he does a daily show, so they're short. He started putting them on YouTube. What do you know? There's more content on YouTube, so he started growing. And he's like, hey, should I now start putting slides in my video? And I was like, because it's only 10 minutes. And here's my thing. Anything with video, if you've got the time and the budget, sure. If you're a tax accountant the week before April 15th, there was, in fact, let me tie this in with another question. Because I saw this and was like, well, I'm not really sure. Yeah. And they get really, YouTube people get really nerdy. They're dropping names Let me share my screen, and it says, "Hey guys, of course, we just looking for some advice and other people's experience as to changing settings regarding where the podcast is recorded. This isn't the one I was looking for. Somebody said basically about the way they edit the show in the style of like Alibaba or somebody. I was like, wait, what? Yeah, here we go. I have clients. So I have clients of mine for 6 months now. I do mostly repurposing of this long form videos from YouTube and repurposing them into shorts and reels. That seems to be what people are doing now. Yeah, be on YouTube, but mainly be on YouTube so you can cut them into shorts.
Right.
Some of these reels become viral and some aren't. Welcome to YouTube. It's called an algorithm. I use the same editing style like Ali Abdal. Sorry, Ali, never heard of you, but okay. I'm assuming Ali does really good editing. So the first thing came to mind is because of the guest topic. But when I did the same guest and topic with different editing style, the one with minimal editing has more views and likes and comments than the one apparently that has all sorts of flashy stuff. My question is more likely a survey for seasoned podcasters. Which editing do you prefer? The one with lots of editing animations or the minimal approach? Your feedback is appreciated. And so kind of going back to Ralph's question in this, is it just me, or it seems like they're kind of focusing on the icing and not the cake? Like if it's good content and it's a talking head, oh crap, something Buck. There's a guy on YouTube that does microphone reviews. Tom Buck. I think that's his last name. Anyway, he talks into the microphone. Now he occasionally will switch camera angles, but for the most part, he's not doing anything too crazy. And so when Ralph is saying, should I add slides? If you got time, sure. But in a way, it's kind of, to me, that's kind of backwards. If I was just doing slides, I would go, should I do live video and put my face there, as opposed, I've already got my face. I've gone as video as I can get. I'm 100% video. Now do I want to put in slides? If I was going to put anything, I guess if I wanted to put icing on this, it might be B-roll. Because I think if we go, I don't know. I'm rambling, Jim. Thoughts?
No, you're fine. You're at you're bringing up a lot of good points in the YouTube construction process. And you watch. There's a couple different variety, right? I mean, there's folks just doing stuff. There's highly produced stuff. There's AI created stuff there where they're using a lot of B-roll. And I still contend on YouTube, people follow people. And I think getting a personality out there is why, I mean, everyone loves Joe Rogan because he's Joe Rogan. If I did Joe Rogan's exact show, it wouldn't get the traction because I'm not Joe Rogan. I mean, they love Joe Rogan. They love his background. They love who he is and what he does, what he interviews, all those kinds of things, right? So, I mean, I think, yeah, put some slides. I mean, that's better than nothing. And if you have a style that people like and they're helpful slides, yeah, put them in there. Absolutely. But is that gonna, I don't know, do it and try, see what happens, experiment with it. That's the beauty of all of this, is you can give it a shot and give it a try and see what works. I was in a podcast meeting this week at work, and we're kind of questioning everything right now, which is good. Every once in a while, those cycles that you go through where it's like, do we tie our shoes to the left or we tie them to the right? You're kind of like, oh, we don't need to question everything, but we are. And so I was in a podcast meeting, and we were talking about, in one of the podcasts we do has these varying topics, and somebody was making a comment, nothing's consistent, it can't ever be the same. They're interviewing different people all the time with different backgrounds and different topics. And I didn't say it, but I wish I would have said, hello, Joe Rogan. Like, Rogan is not, there's not one consistent thing except him and maybe him smoking weed in the podcast or cigars. So I always come back to, people want to follow people. You need to be interesting, right? You need to have an opinion. You need to have a personality. You need to be consistent with it, and people need to like you. Now, that has a asterisk on it, because some people like to watch things that they don't like the person on, and I don't understand that, but it is a thing. Like, it's
Oh,
a thing, right? People, like, they'll watch it and then complain about it, and then they'll come back the next week and watch it
dude,
again. You see this on YouTube all the time, right?
Virgin River on Netflix is the dumbest show ever, where they have drama. Like, what do you mean you farted in church?
Yeah.
I can't believe, I don't know if I can forgive you for this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
really? It's but I watched
Manufactured.
that show to make sure it's still stupid and dumb, and I want to punch that one woman in the face because her drama is so. Yeah, I get the whole people watch things because they,
Yeah, they watch it for people.
But
And
yeah,
they wanna they like listen, we have 30 people or whatever it is in our chat room right now. And this is the same thing on the podcast that I do at Gallup. We get people that come out to join us live. They're joining us, and I don't want to sound, I'm just gonna say it. You guys like hanging out with us. You like us in most cases. Bang's Naughty Bits may have been an exception, but
right.
most of you like hanging out with us. That's why you're here. When either one of us are gone, we hear about that, those kinds of things. Welcome back when you're here. We missed you, that kind of stuff. You like hanging out with us. So be more than gimmicks on your podcasts. Be interesting. Be an approachable, interesting person who people like. And I think and that's you, by the way, because you can't sustain that. You can't sustain a fake person very long.
We have somebody
So
who wants
just
to
be you.
chime. We have somebody who wants to chime in on that. Glenn,
Yeah.
go right ahead, Glenn.
Don't be boring.
There you go.
Yeah. No, right on. Well, and I would reverse that and say just be interesting. Be interesting in your way. Be you. Be who you are.
Yeah.
The one you'll attract people who are interested in that, and the ones that don't like it will go away. Generally.
Yeah. And so yeah,
Larry's here for the cake.
exact. Well, I don't know that I would add slides. To me, that I think that's a step backwards. But
Well, you could
you know,
try.
try it. Yeah.
Try it, and then you know what? Say give me some feedback in the comments. Hey, I'm doing this thing new. I'm trying this on YouTube. Give me some feedback in the comments. It's if you don't get any comments or the numbers don't go up, just stop doing it, because that's a huge waste of time. Then at that point, I don't know many people who are putting on YouTube videos and just to listen to them. So I don't know. It depends on the audience.
Well, that goes back to Coach Dave. I has to agree. My answer to this question is, it kind of depends. Yeah, as always, it does.
Yeah.
I was at Podcast Movement, and I'm just so tired of YouTube, because people are saying people are discovering video podcasts on YouTube, and to me, a video podcast is a YouTube. So they're saying people are watching more YouTube on YouTube. And oh, by the way, we're going to cure cancer. We are going to do your laundry. We will, free sexual favors to all. It's YouTube will do everything. And I'm just like, no. Dan, here's one. Dan, I tried YouTube promotion thing for an episode just to see. Got rejected for being political for a war history episode. There's your algorithm. There's your brand safety. Congratulations. Brand safety. Don't get me going. Let's see here. Speaking of shorts, Jeff says the king of creating shorts for podcast is at Castahead. Yeah, castahead.net, if I remember right. The one and only Chris Stone, member of the School of Podcasting. If you haven't checked out his channel, you need to. I by the way, and just embellished that. So some of that was Jeff and some of that was me. Chris does great work. Gary Stockton says, I like to mix up podcast interviewing using Stream Deck and Ecamm. The problem is he's not doing interviews. It's just Ralph being Ralph, talking about taxes. And he changes on Wednesdays, it's Wacky Wednesday, and Sundays he does something a little more spiritual. And then here we go. I don't know who Ali Abdal is, but according to Craig, he has great content and engaging editing. So here's the thing, though. I think we see this a lot, and tell me if I'm wrong. It seems like we're not doing the Wayne Gretzky. Everybody knows the great Wayne Gretzky, the hockey guy, and he had this quote. They said, how do you score so many points? And he goes, most people skate to the puck. I skate to where the puck is going to be. And so I think so many of us see Ali Abdal, and they're like, oh, this guy's famous. look what he's doing. I'm going to do what he's doing. So we're skating at the puck instead of like, okay, that's going to like, remember when audiograms first came out? We're like, oh, this is everybody do audiograms. Come on, get on. This is the thing that's going to give us 10,000 downloads. Come on. And then all of a sudden we all went, yeah, it's a squiggly line. Like I'm in Ohio. We got the big eclipse thing coming up here. And like on the news, they're like, lock down the house. Thousands of people are coming here because it's going to get dark in the middle of the afternoon. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So, but I had a thought. Oh, it's no big deal, right? And
no, it's just funny. It's going to get dark in the middle of the afternoon.
That's really, I mean, because to me, like, what is it? Well, the moon and the earth, and all of a sudden about 3 o'clock, it's going to get dark. And I'm like, and this is a big deal. I get it, because it normally doesn't get dark in the middle of the afternoon. But I'm like, why are thousands of people driving from Florida to go to Ohio to put on, how much money was made on the cheap sunglasses? And then B, the forecast is it's going to be overcast, so we might not be able to see it. So that's kind of fun. But yeah, so give it a shot. If you have the time, do it. I'm just not sure. And this is where, like that guy there with the editing, if people are losing subscribers, unless that was it. There's one of the questions I picked. I can't find it. The guy changed his background. Like he changed from one office to another one. And he's like, I'm losing subscribers. And I'm like, so, and I'm like, unless your background is a bunch of backlight that is hard to look at, or you've got blood and gut, something that's just disturbing to look at, I don't know that your background has a lot to do with, to me, that is, again, icing. Now, granted, when we eat cake, we eat cake for the icing, but I just think some of this stuff, I go, I don't think, if the cake is no good, if there's no good ingredients, better ingredients, better pizza, right? Papa John's. And I'm like, so I think sometimes we get focused. I'm here to tell you, there were no less than 10 questions about microphones. And I'm like, I don't think that's it,
I do. I've gotten a resurgence, excuse me, in questions from folks about microphones lately. And I don't know what caused it, but all of a sudden everybody's like, hey, you've been talking for a long time about improving your sound by using a better microphone. Can you walk me through that process? So I wonder sometimes if those come in waves. Yeah, I think Dave, give it a try. Like don't let us determine what your show becomes. You do it the way you want to do it. Make it fun. If you want to add the slides, I think they add value and you get feedback that they do great. If you get feedback that your background is causing people to be disengaged, well, consider changing your background. Here's the deal, though. You're never going to please everybody. So you're always going to get somebody that says, I at work all the time. When I podcast from home, my audience likes this background. They tell me this all the time. And when I go to work, it's that gray, it says Gallup, it's like the corporate background that we put in. And the guy who built the studio thought that would be super cool. And it does kind of look cool in person. Doesn't look great on camera. And the audience doesn't like it. And they tell me all the time. So I think we're going to change up the background there. It just looks a little sterile, but you can't listen, you will chase your tail till the end of days if you try to make everybody happy and please everyone with the feedback. At some point, you just got to do what works for you and let the chips fall.
Remind me of that later to talk about I'm launching the one show about the website, and that's fun. But they're saying in the chat here what they're doing. Ralph says, I do some interviews as well. Just did one with Practical Mark from practicalprepping.info. And he's done one with Craig. So what this would look like is be Ask the Podcast Coach, where I do my thing. And then when Jim has something to say, I do this. And then Jim talks, and then I talk, and then Jim talks, and then maybe occasionally we do the split, and then back to Jim, that whole 9 yards. And what that does is it makes your brain, I'm sure Chris again from castahead.net, there is a thing that, like, the whole jump cut thing, your brain goes, hey, what was that? So when all of a sudden something changes, all of a sudden your brain's like, wait, what's that? Holy cow. What, so I get that it does help hold attention, but there is a part of me that goes, Yeah, but I could sit here all day and go, blue. It's blue, I tell you. Let's talk about blue. It's one of my favorite colors. Actually, one of my favorite colors is black, but it's purple, and now it's blue. And you're like, yeah, if the content is boring, it doesn't matter how much camera switching you do. It's, again, what is it, Glenn? What did you say?
Don't be boring.
Yeah, don't be boring. So I think that's it. See, and Chris, now we're making people hungry. Chris is like, I want some red velvet cake.
Me too.
See, I'm not a fan of the red velvet.
Oh,
Give me chocolate all
I
the way.
eat any cake right now. I'd eat anything.
And I hope I am louder now. I'm looking at VU meters, and according to the VU meter on the Rodecaster Pro Mini, whatever the little baby one is, I'm actually louder than Jim now. So,
What if there's a final out somewhere in the Ecamm that is misbalanced or something? Because we get this feedback.
Oh, you know what? I can
quite a
check that here. Let's do that. Okay, so now you talk, Jim.
Hello, 1, 2, 3,
Okay,
5,
you're there,
7,
and
9.
I am considerably lower. So let's turn me up like that. There we go. That's it. Because I'm looking at this, and you are on the interview channel. I am on the Rodecaster Duo chat. Sorry, people watching the video.
There you go. There
See,
you go.
more things. As I say, more equipment, more problems. That's always fun. One thing that's happened for us is YouTube Shorts are driving new subscribers, so we'll continue to make short outtake videos. That seems to be the biggest reason to be on YouTube now, and this is the marketing strategy I see, is cut up YouTube Shorts. I'm here to tell you, anytime I click on Shorts, how many shorts do you watch when you go to watch one YouTube Shorts, Jim?
Oh, a bunch.
Yeah.
A bunch.
I click on one, and I watch no less than 5. And it's usually about, for me, it's, that was a bad one. That was a bad one. Okay, what's the next one? I'm not really interested in the guitar right now. Next. And all of a sudden, I'll be like, nah, okay. But if one of those hits, I'll be like, okay, it's, there's a show on Netflix, and I was watching it because, again, word of mouth. Here, I don't want people to get bored. I'm going to switch channels to me. I was watching it on Netflix, and it's called The Night Agent, and I like it. I had 3 people say, oh, that's a good show. You should watch it. I just got done binging it. And the whole, number one, it comes out and grabs you by the neck because you're like, wait, this guy works for the FBI, and there's, they have a good opening scene to where you're like, wait, what's, and that's the whole thing. The whole thing is like, wait, what? Who is this guy? What's he doing? It's the whole thing is just, I want to know what happens next. And who is this? And why is this? And then I laughed because about 3/4 the way through, you're like, okay, we're just getting to the story. And it turns out that his dad was accused of being a traitor. His dad was in the FBI, and he wasn't a traitor. I'm like, okay, so we know along the line of the story, we're going to figure out what really happened with his dad. And so anything that can get your audience, here's a little breadcrumb. Okay, keep coming. Here's another little breadcrumb. Oh, but now you need to know about that one. It's, in terms of storytelling, I can see why people thought it was good, because you want to know what happens next. And then this, they get in a situation where he's basically being someone's bodyguard, which I liked it the first time in the movie called, what was it again? Oh, that's right, The Bodyguard. Because it just so happens that he's extremely handsome, and the person that he is bodyguarding is pretty attractive as well. So the whole time you're like, oh, are we going to do a moonlighting? And wonder the whole time, are they going to hook up or not? And it just, the whole time I'm laughing going, I really like this, and I know why I like this. I see what you're doing there. You're getting me wondering what's going on. And so if you need something to watch, it's fun. But and then you wonder, oh, is she going to trust him? Because she doesn't know. Okay, enough of that, Dave. We get it. But anytime you can get your audience going, I wonder what happens next. Like, I'm sure with Dan on his show, when I've listened to it, he does a little bit like, wait, what? That's information I couldn't get anyplace else. And I thought in the movie did this, and they're like, wait, well, what really happened? And so it gets you sucked in. So that's what gets people talking about your content. I don't have the clip ready now, but in my, there's a guy named Rick Beato. Being a musician, I watch his stuff, and he will go in and like, why is this song good? He talks a lot about the music business because he used to be a producer, and how he did this one with a guy. And this is where I always want to go. Remember, people, Spotify is run by the music business. There's a major ownership of that. And at one point, they're talking about how musicians come to them all the time. They're like, how do I get more listeners? How do I get more fans? And their answer was, make a extremely good record. Like, that's really where you got to start. And nobody likes that answer. But, you know, I remember when, did you remember the Black Album from Metallica?
No.
No, that's the one it had. You're not a Metallica person.
No,
When it came out, just the sound of it, the sound of that album was like, it just sounded huge. It sounded like music Godzilla would walk into. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then I listened to it over and over and over. And everybody that liked that kind of music was like, have you got the Black Album yet? And, you know, so here again, a really, really good album. So
well,
that helps.
Dave, I think one of the things, you know, you think about taking a chance on your podcast, changing a format, doing something different, trying something Metallica, you know, trying something new with it. And we listen, the examples we always pull from where that's super successful, you know, what do they say? History is written by the victors, right? And sometimes what we think is best case or best scenario, they of course are always drawn in by those who were successful. But there have been plenty of attempts to do things that haven't been successful. New Coke is an example of one of those things where a multi-billion-dollar organization did a whole bunch of research, thought they were doing the right thing, were competing with Pepsi at the time, and thought, you know what, we're going to do something. We've had an old formula, right, kind of thing. They honestly thought they were doing the right thing, you know, for what they were doing, and it was terrible. And so, but they learned, and they brought original Coke back super fast,
real quick.
and yeah, you just don't know. So I think you've got to always be willing to try to, you know, experiment, do things new, do something different, but also be able to pull back on something if it doesn't work. You know, you try something and you're like, this doesn't work, to be able to backtrack and say, okay, yeah, that wasn't as good. But all that being said, if you're doing your podcast for you and things you like to do, your audience wants you to do something you don't want to do, don't do it. You know, that's stick with what, you know, it's this dance. At the end of the day, you have to decide, what do I want out of this thing at the end of the day?
Well, that's it. And here's an example. I cannot, well, it's kind of weird. These are from Mark, right? So we kind of did this before where everybody said, hey, we like the artwork design, we just don't like the colors. So I sent out a form. I guess I could put this in the chat room as well. But I got 60 replies on this, right? And so we've got blue, we've got red, we got white, we got one. I love the fact that the mouse is still hanging around. I was a big fan of the mouse. And the one that is winning the most right now, unfortunately, by 31%, is none of the above. Like when they look at this, and I was like, crap.
Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, I was like, bummer. And so I like the fact that this guy said, I like E, but with your name on the bottom, a blue stripe with white lettering. And that's not me, by the way, but that's my answer. I like the mousy thing. I would like to see the mouse, and this is probably what I'm going to tell Mark, take the mousy example, which is E, and merge it with somehow, if we can I like the dark blue with the white letters. I think that looks cool. I'm not a huge fan of all the screens. I get it. Do we need my name? Because if you think about it, the author of the podcast is going to say Dave Jackson. So do we need it on the website? So I kind of like this, or take this with the mouse and your podcast website, put that over here, get rid of the screens, and put the gray on the bottom. And I think, and here's the thing. On one hand, I've for almost a month now been asking people, what do they like? What do they like? Because the one that's getting the most, that's not none of the above, is D, which is this one, white background, blue. So red, white, and blue, basically. But this is one of those where I'm like, yeah, but I really like the mouse. I think the mouse is cute. I like the idea of the mouse. I thought if we just made that dark blue on the background, like if I combine your website with the mouse, I think I'm done. Because I really want to get this podcast going. I don't know. So here's my thoughts. Is it stupid then to ask your audience only to then ignore them? Because this did rank okay. It's not, unfortunately none of the above is winning, but this was in like the top 3. And I was like, well, I don't know. I feel kind of silly.
What if these, Dave? What if these were tight jeans, like tight? Or what are they? Skinny pants? Is that what they call them? Skinny jeans.
Skinny jeans. Here we go.
And your audience said to you, Dave, what we really want to do is see you in skinny jeans all the time. And you were like, I'm not going to wear skinny jeans. Like I'm not. And the audience is like, but we would really love to see you.
Yeah.
So I think, this is one of those cases for you too. At the end of the day, you got to live with this logo. It may not be the most popular one that the audience picked, but if you like it, I think go with it. If you're in a situation where like, you know what, I can go with what the audience says. I don't particularly like it, but they did. Go that direction. I'm not sure it's a make or break for you.
That's probably it.
I'm not sure.
You know what?
Right.
You nailed it, Jim Collison. This is where you're too close to the trees to see the forest, or however that stupid saying goes. This is a classic example of overthinking, really. Because in the end, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I just need to pull the trigger, go to town on that. And then we got some comments on this already. Where did Craig go? I had it. We did get some great stuff with...
Well, again, on that logo, think about New Coke. Like they had all these, they had all these indicators that this is what people wanted, and they followed it. And then the people rebelled, and they said,
yeah, it's true.
So, right. I mean, but they did make a decision. I mean, they know now, right? Don't change the formula. They know that now. And yes, this is an example we always bring up, but because it was huge. So I think go with what you like. If you're comfortable with it, make that decision. Am I going to go with the audience or what I like? And then if you launched it and it was a terrible decision, you've got Mark's other things. You can always just swap it back out. Right?
Yeah, I could say, let's go back. Did you throw away that? Yeah, that's true. And I just had Craig's point. And this is something that I am uncomfortable. Where'd it go? See, everybody's chatting. Here we go. Craig says,
well, they want to see you in skinny jeans is what they do.
That's it, of course. I want to see me in skinny jeans. Well, we could go into a whole jeans tyrant, but I won't. Craig says your name reinforces your brand, and you're very, very well known in the podcasting space. And this is something that my brain has a hard time grasping. I remember once I was in a mastermind, and he said, Dave, you know what your problem is? And I go, what? He goes, you don't know you're Dave Jackson. And I like, what? And like, he goes, no, man. And I went to, Kevin Schmidlin had a webinar, 4-hour thing on, growing your podcast. And I like Kevin. I don't consider him competition because he's going after a completely different audience guy. But I went in not for the content, although the content towards the end, especially the beginning was kind of, stuff for everybody. Towards the end, it was some good stuff. I went in there to watch the chat room. I wanted to see what the questions were that people were getting. So, because I think somebody he works with kind of went, why are you here? And I said, I'm just here to lurk. Like, I'm just really looking at the chat room. I would never poach Kevin's, potential clients. I know people have come here to this chat room and poached clients. And I think that's, I want to curse. It's not nice to poach other people's clients, and you will get banned for that if you openly do that. At least do what everybody else does and send them a DM. You could always get your own show, but anyway, that's a thought. But
I love this rant. This is awesome.
Yeah. So, and I forget why I was talking about Kevin. Oh crap! See, I derailed myself.
Sorry, am I laughing threw you off?
No, crap, what were we talking about? I totally derailed myself.
Skinny jeans?
Skinny jeans, yeah. Crap. But anyway, I went over there to watch questions, not really to poach.
Yeah.
And going back to rebranding, since we're on, I'll take rebranding for 200. I just did episode 500 somebody in the chat room was like, you were talking about this, Dave. Oh, thank you. I just did episode 500 of the podcast Rodeo show. And for years, I've been saying that really needs rebranded. And then my audience was kind of like, no, it's fun. It's cute. I'm like, yeah, but in terms of like, does it pass the Dave test, which is, hey, I'm doing a show called Podcast Rodeo Show. What do you think it's about? And everybody goes, the rodeo? And I go, nope, sorry, that's not what it's about. And then I put on like first impression reviews. And I thought about it. I thought what I should rename the show is Podcast Hot Seat. Because that's kind of, that seems to me, I don't know, what do you think, Jim? Is that obvious enough?
That sounds more like the Hot Wings show where they bring people on and they eat hot wings till they like they're on. It's like a person on the hot seat. I mean,
Well,
I get it. I get what you're saying there.
Here was my thought. So we'll throw this out and brainstorm together.
Yeah.
So it's me, and then I bring on maybe 2, tops 3, because this show is normally 15 minutes. So that's the first thing I have to get my head around. I'm blowing out the format, right? And this used to be a short show that took no time. That was the whole premise of it. I'm not doing any research. I'm listening to 5 minutes of your show and then saying, this is what I liked and this is what I didn't. And as a marketing tool, it has failed miserably. It has brought 0, well, I shouldn't say, maybe a handful of clients to the School of Podcasting. So Dave, why did you keep on doing it? Because it was fun. All right. Is it not fun as it used to be? Kinda. Because I can't remember the last time I said, I like this show. It's all like I just listened to LeBron James has a new podcast where his website is, of course, the YouTube, right? There's no website for the actual podcast. I listened to 10 minutes of this thing and never heard the voice of LeBron James. So that got the old, like, hey, now if you're a basketball player and you want to talk serious, like level 3, like podcast or basketball strategy on how to play and how to guard, that's the show for you. I liked it for that. Like early in, they started talking serious basketball jargon, but I just like, I just seem like I want to get a t-shirt that says curmudgeon on it. Because it just seems like everything I do is just, oh, here's that old guy, you know. So my thought was, getting back to that, man, I'm really all over the place today.
You are wound up. I am.
Well, I missed the show. Have maybe 3 people, probably 2. So if we could listen to 10 minutes of each show, although, and then so it'd be like this. All right, Jim's here, you know, Ralph's here, Craig's here from Live Well and Flourish, and we're all going to listen to each other's shows. So Jim has given me an episode, so we start listening to Home Gadget Geeks, and if for some reason you don't like it anymore, maybe I'd have to figure out, maybe you turn off your camera if that was easy to do or something. That would be your way of going, right? But as long as there are people, and then eventually when I determine, you know, it's enough of that, we're 5-10 minutes in, then we stop, and I ask you, Jim, okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, what would you give the audio? On a scale, you know, Jim, you turned off your camera at maybe there's something they hold up, a buzzer, I don't know, something. And, you know, you turned off your buzzer about 2 minutes in. What made you bail? And then you could say, I don't know, I just wasn't getting anything out of it, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Was there anything you liked about it? So we basically then all go around and say, this is what I liked about the show. And if there is something that you would change, what would it then be? And so then Jim comments on it. I commented and the other person commented. The person whose show is just listening. Then we go to, you know, Ralph's show and we listen a little of AskRalphPodcast.com. And then Jim comments on it. You know, Lisa comments on it. I comment it. Ralph listens. Repeat. What's good? What's bad? Audio. Did you listen to the whole thing? And so you end up with 4 podcast reviews. This would be done live on YouTube and then later turned into a podcast. What say you, Jim Collison? So here's what I'm thinking. I think it would be good YouTube content, even though, you know, we could switch the screens every time somebody talks just to keep people awake. So it would be a live show. It's kind of the Gong Show in a way, without putting the word gong in there. And then here's Ralph. I threw this idea out, and Ralph said what you should do, because originally I was going to charge people to be on a panel because you're getting your podcast reviewed. Ralph said what you should do is anybody that agrees to be a panelist gets a free week, gets a free month, something at the School of Podcasting. And I went, that's because now instead of hoping they join the school of podcasting. You just throw them in for free and then see how long they stick around. And I went, that talk about playing with something. I was like, I would like to test that one just to see how it would work. But I've talked a lot. Now I'm going to shut up and I'm going to switch Jim to his solo show so he can answer.
Oh, don't make me solo. I'm not comfortable solo. I see a few problems in that kind of format. Well, one is
timing.
In a review form. No, I think all that I think the way you're going about it isn't as important as the why and the who in this case. So listen, people want your opinion because you've been podcasting, forever, and you've got, this is what you do, right? So you've got a reputation. If you have other podcasters come on whom they may or may not know, they may have not signed up for those folks. They don't know who they are, nor do they really value their opinion. And so I'm not sure that a rotating panel of podcasters is all that helpful. Listen, if you're doing this, the Gong Show worked because it was entertainment, not helpful. No one was on the Gong Show to improve their comedy or improve their music. It was entertainment, right? And they picked people on there to because at the end of the day, it was pure entertainment. I think you're trying to blend entertainment with helpfulness. And I'm not sure those two go together. This is why the Rodeo show has a weird rub.
It does have a weird rub.
Yeah, because you're trying to be entertaining and interesting and helping people at the same time. And I don't know if those all work together. I don't know if that's a cocktail that you want to mix up on a regular basis. I think having a show where you bring people on to have a very serious conversation about the quality of their podcast is very valid. I think having a show where you make fun of other podcasts is very entertaining. I don't think you can mix the two together, right? That's my personal opinion.
No, that's that's always been, you hit the nail on the head, is when I first started, I was tired when I was doing it, and I was much more honest than I am now. I now literally will take 15 seconds to kind of come up where before I was just right, and that's one of the situations where just because you think it doesn't mean you should say it. And so I still give honest opinion. Like LeBron James I'm like, dude, I'm 10 minutes in. I haven't heard LeBron James yet. I'm like, what the heck? I tuned in to hear LeBron, not some guy talk about what LeBron thinks. I'm like, that was kind of crappy. But I think you hit the nail on the head. What's the goal of the show? The goal of the show is to drive members to the School of Podcasting. Is that going to work? Because, and Larry had a great point. He said he has a mastermind, and he was saying they just removed the hot seat because, people are pooping on their art. And that's not really as much as you should let people poop on your art, because how is it going to get better? But on the other hand, if it might kind of, especially in a mastermind where you're trying to build community and somebody's honest and said, I don't know, I just was kind of bored, here he is. He says, we just eliminated the hot seat from our mastermind due to negative emotions people were having towards being in it. Yeah. And that's where you need to find, just like any mastermind, you need the right people. And that's where, it would be, people have to know this is what's going in. And unfortunately, we all think about a review is going to be, they're just going to rip my podcast to shreds. And I'm like, well, not if there's not anything to rip to shreds. You know what I mean? But I was working with a member of the School of Podcasting last night. And this isn't wrong. It's just it's something to think about. But at the end, he pointed people towards his patreon.com/whatever. And then he pointed people towards Facebook at facebook.com/whatever. I said, I would reverse those and go, hey, if you want to join our community, go to mywebsite.com/community. If you want to join our Patreon, if you want to be a supporter, like we go, askthepodcastcoach.com/support. So that was my negative feedback. I said the audio was good. He did one thing where he was asking somebody about their divorce. and it's kind of sensitive, right? We're like going, maybe this guy doesn't want to talk about this. So what he did was he shared a vulnerable story first. And I'm like, that's absolutely like, that's the blueprint. If you want your audience to be vulnerable, if you want your guest to be vulnerable, then you should kind of demonstrate that. And he did. The show is aroundthelayout.com is his website. It's a show. Talk about a niche. It's a show for people that are into model trains, and they are deep into it. And all it is, in fact, you'll hear me talk about this on the next episode of the School of Podcasting. Like, Jim, like you smoke cigars. So like you hang out with Ed and Dave and you guys talk about cigars, and suddenly you're not surrounded by people like, oh, they stink. Oh, I hate it. Like, no, you're around people that are like, oh, I love that. If you ever smoked this type or that type. So it's model trains, but it's a whole bunch of people that love model trains. And so that's one of the benefits of that show. But he was the guy who was like, oh, I said, no, make that aroundthelayout.com/community, aroundthelayout.com/support. So sometimes now, some people might go, thank you so much. I had a guy that new member of the School of Podcasting, met him at Podcast Movement, so that was awesome. But the name of his show was his name. And I go, if people don't know you, they don't know what it'd be like, oh, it's the Jeff, Jemenko show, right? Well, if you don't know who Jeff Jemenko is, then I'm not really wanting to click on that. I said, you need a tagline. And he's got an amazing show already. It's about church planting. And so his audience is not only, there's an example of, they know his why, like why he's doing the show. And he said, yeah, last year somebody donated $65,000 to his podcast. I was like, that is because of my podcast story, my friend. Holy cow. But he didn't have a tagline. I go, you need a tagline, because if people search for your show, unless they know who you are, they're not going to, find you. Randy says about mastermind groups. Many mastermind groups have no clue how to facilitate being helpful. They jump to tell mode and should mode instead of helping others figure it out for themselves. Ah, there you go. Wise man, Randy Cantrell.
Yeah, Dave, so as you've been talking about this, I've been thinking about like, what would I do? What would I do differently? You're contemplating. Now, listen, you're contemplating the format of this, and so you're open to suggestions. I'm not coming out of the blue and saying, I've told you I'm uncomfortable with that rodeo show because
I was going to kill it. I was like 500. You know what? We're done. I'm going to start this other show.
Yeah. No, I think it comes from a motive. The motives are good. The execution for me was too confrontational. I can't take that confrontational format, the jackass stuff, even Candid Camera was a little bit, now it's going way back, was a little bit, right, too confrontational for me. I say that tongue in cheek, of course, but what you could do is, so you got a podcaster that wants a review, or you're doing a review on, you were just randomly picking these, right? You weren't
literally
with people.
Here's the thing where it's probably a pricing issue, because I was just having fun. It's $5 to get reviewed. I just didn't want to do it for free.
Right,
so I made it $5.
Then everybody would do it.
Well, you would think, right? But it's $5. It might as well be free. And I still don't have people signing up. There's no line there. And I went, okay. So, so what, either raise the price on that because they say there's no perceived value, probably. That would be if I was coaching me, I'd be like, oh, you need to raise your price. People think this is crap because it's only $5.
The goal was always to drive people to school podcasting.
Right. Like if you need
the goal on this thing.
Yeah. It was like, hey, if you don't even have a podcast, come visit me, schoolofpodcasting.com kind of thing.
So I think what you could try, take this is, so you get a podcast, somebody wants this kind of review, have them do some of the homework and say, hey, present to me, give me your best show, and tell me 3 points in the show that you think where you're the best, like where you're the strongest in this. Then they'll give you those, they can give you those timestamps and you go listen. You're going to listen to the show anyways. then you could go through in the first half of the show, you could critique those best, and not trying to tear them down, but trying to build them up. People
Right.
love to hear, like what we do here on the show. I mean, we do some tearing down, but we're trying to build people up, right? We're trying to encourage people to do this. So build them up. Hey, let me play this clip. Then you could do a little coaching. Hey, why did you submitted this? What did you think? Then you could say, here's what I think. I think in the midst of that conversation, because you've listened to the show, you could also spend some time pulling out some things that aren't working so well. It puts a more positive spin on it, as opposed to coming out in it being like that. They get a little input on what you talk about, but you still get the opportunity to work with them and show people like that you've got an opinion on some of these things and that you can talk positively about it. I bet you get a lot more people to listen to something that way. They know, because they know they're coming in and the person's not on the hot seat. They're going to be encouraged for the best 3 spots in the show. Then you can still coach them. It's the criticism sandwich, right?
Right.
Something good, something bad, something good.
Right.
And I think it may give you the opportunity for a little more constructive, a little more positive. I don't know. Thoughts on that? What do you think?
No, I definitely agree. I always try, even if it's a horrible show on the Rodeo show, the first thing I'll say then, because I always start off with, here's what I liked. Yeah. And if it's horrible, if it's tremendously bad audio, like it's just bad. It's just like, it's like you should stop podcasting bad. I will say the good news is, while many people have been thinking about doing a podcast for years, you actually pressed record. So kudos for that. That's good. I'm glad you're up and running. Now let's see if we can shape this a little more effectively, and then I'll go into them.
I just don't think outing people, and I know you're not doing that intentionally, but
right.
I just don't think some people really like that. I don't think most people do. Right.
No, I think
there are folks who can tolerate that. I can't. I can't watch people be embarrassed that way. Yeah, I just can't. I could barely, this is serious. I could barely watch The Office at times because it was so embarrassing. Some of the things people would do, and it's just, maybe sometimes it hits too close to home.
Well,
so.
and now you're really leading me to think maybe I should just shut her down. I really like it. It's like this really isn't geared to do, Chris says,
does it match the goal?
My brand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I almost shut it down once. Yeah. Chris says SWOT analysis. I like that. And then there are people like this. John Jamango says, having Dave Jackson telling my podcast stinks would break my heart. See, again, this is where, to me, it's just an opinion. And then other people go, no, you're Dave Jackson. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just a dude. And they're like, nah, but, Chris, again, strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities, that whole 9 yards.
That's a SWOT.
Yeah.
Yep. No, you could go that. I just really think it comes at the intention. Are you trying to help the person? Or are you trying to out the person?
Yeah, I'm always trying to help. It may sound like I'm trying to out them.
Yeah,
It would. Yeah. See, that's exactly the same thing. That reaction. Craig says, good teachers always lead with praise before speaking about the negative stuff. Yeah. But the fact that we're all kind of going, well, it's tricky, and you really need the right people to do that. Dave destroyed my podcasting hopes and dreams many years ago when I first got started. And Larry ignored everything I said, and he's kicking butt and taking names right now. So, although if I remember right, Larry had a show. It was like Everything About Everything. I forget the name of it, but it was just, I want to talk about whatever I want to talk about. And I was kind of like, shouldn't there be a theme in here somewhere? But, and of course, all you needed to do, and it's brilliant. It really is. You talk about, we all think we have to write our name in the sky or something like that. Larry put on a red hat and invented Red Hat Media. And I'm here to tell you, it's like genius. Because if I go to an event and I walk into a room and there's 800 people and I see a red hat, I instantly know that's Larry. And it's not some MAGA guy. Because also Larry's tall. And so the minute I see a tall, it was, Really Random was the name of his show. And I was kind of like, do we all, and there are people, that's a niche, by the way. The niche is, I want multiple topics. That's a niche. I've had people like, I can't pick one. But Larry's red hat is genius because I know right where he is, everything in his marketing material. You know, he'll have a picture of him in black and white, but his hat is still red. So, you know, consequently, I'm going to start wearing a graduation robe to and a blue hat. You know, blue. You know, I could do that. Sure. Dan says nothing wrong with going on hiatus to give you some time away from it and see if I miss it. That's not a bad idea. But I just the more we talk about this, the more I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure this works. You know what I mean? Without the right people, I need people willing to, because, you know, and the thing is, again, most of the shows have something to improve on. I mean, the School of Podcasting can improve. One of my mantras is constant improvement. Randy says the podcast Rodeo show is one of my immediate listens. I know that I will either find a good podcast to listen to, like Living Up in a Down World, or a bad one to avoid. Yep, it is kind of that. And there are plenty of people that will eat. Well, I always play this when somebody's like, hey, you missed the boat. Because I listened to one, because I've been reviewing popular shows that, like, if I don't get somebody in, that's why I reviewed LeBron's show, because people are looking for that show. And so then they'll find mine. And I've had people say, yeah, you missed the boat. You gave that one the old, and if you had listened another 4 minutes, they hook you in. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not listening to 20 minutes of a show to do. It's a first impression thing. And I don't know. So it's something to think about.
Well, this is, you know, the chat room is a great example of, there's some folks who love that show. There's others who don't. Well, if you can't listen to everybody,
right.
Are you know, is it fulfilling the needs and the purpose and the mission of what you intended it to do? I gave, you know, my advice was, I think it's a mixed message, but you ultimately have to decide what you want that to be. It's not my decision, it's yours.
Yeah.
I do think, you know, if the goal was to provide coaching, I think, you know, the old adage about leadership where you praise in public and criticize private.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think sometimes, like, if the intent is to show that in coaching, I don't think we would come in here and on this show, when we criticized, it's not like we don't criticize things. We just criticize companies that do things weird and, you know, situations like that. But if we all of a sudden, you know, say one Saturday we brought, and Dan's a sponsor, so I'll use him as an example. So we bring on, you know, his show and start tearing it up. And he didn't ask for it, and he didn't want it, wasn't ready for it. I'm not sure we'd see Dan for a while at that point, right? Not the intent is that coaching. Sure, we could hide behind the you know, that idea of coaching. Well, I'm just trying to help you. Yeah, this is an Army basic training. You know, this I didn't sign up for this. So I think it's getting those. I mean, if you wanted to, I think if the intent was to drive people to school podcasting or to your coaching stuff, I think a more coach approach. Ooh, that kind of rhymed. A more coach approach to it would actually show them what you can do. Type deal.
Yeah, the thing
and
that
maybe you're doing that. I haven't listened to one, to be honest with you, because I was afraid of the content. You know,
you're gonna cringe. Yeah.
So
Craig has a great point. He goes, it's either a hobby or a business. If it's not bringing you leads and you don't enjoy it, then bin it. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, you know. So I like the idea that Ralph said, maybe give people a month, and I was like, that might backfire. Because my whole thing is unlimited one-on-one consulting. And if I get a bunch of new people with a bunch of questions, that could be an issue. You know, John says, I disagreed with you on the Kelsey Brothers podcast, New Heights. Even though what you said was correct, I still am one of their fans. Yeah, they have a lot of advertising at the beginning of their show. And I was like, as a new listener, I was kind of like, really? And then Coach Dave, sometimes the benefit is not realized by the people or the person in the hot seat, but those in the wings, which kind of goes back to Jim's point of sometimes it's you're coaching, you're trying to coach in public, but in the process you have to criticize in public, which is not great. But it's the people in the wings who aren't, because you're not talking about their show, that get the benefit. So it's kind of tricky. So but I like Dan's idea. Maybe just put it on hiatus for a bit. The thing I hate about that is there are people like Randy that listen when it first comes out. And if I put it on hiatus, it's not like Randy's going to work going, well, I listened to a show today on the way to work, but, podcast rodeo. So I guess I'll just sit here in silence. No, they're going to go find something else. And then when it comes back, it's up to you to, get them to go, well, is this show better than the one I've replaced you with? John says, if Dave called me privately and told me what he thought of my podcast, I would love it. If he did it publicly, it would kill me. Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah. It's the public thing. So, but speaking of things in public, I got to say, there's one feature in Ecamm that I love is, here we go. We'll do this here. Randy says, one of the best podcast rodeo episodes was the Garbage Day podcast, one of the worst shows ever. So, again, it's entertaining. I did have a guy, the very first episode that I did, I forget what it was, but it was horrendous. And the guy finally figured out that I had reviewed his show and said, hey, can you take that down? And I very politely did. I'm like, sure, fine, whatever. I could have said, it's my opinion. See, this is what I tried. Randy says, have you ever released a show where you're actually coaching a client one-on-one? Because I recommend that strategy to my clients. Like, offer discounted coaching and say, hey, we're going to record this. And at the end, I will ask you, are you okay with me releasing this? Because I'm going to point out what you're doing good, but if there's things you might want to try differently, because usually it's not your show is bad. It's like you're missing this. Or, your audio could be benefited by doing this. I've tried that. I interviewed 2 people and it wasn't really good content. You know what I mean? It was like, okay. So maybe I'll try that again. Because I wanted to do that for the School of Podcasting, have consulting episodes. I thought that would be something different, that whole 9 yards. And then what happens is people like Natalie Ekdahl does Biz Chix, Bizchix. She did interviews for years because, well, that's what everybody did, right? Start a podcast, you interview entrepreneurs, and it wasn't driving any business. And so she started doing solo shows. That helped a little because it really connected her with her audience. But then she offered people discounted coaching. A couple people took it up, and she would just say, here's some things you can do better. Wasn't so much, here's what you're doing wrong. Here's things you can do better. And she said, all of a sudden, my audience went, oh, that's what coaching is. And she goes, and the floodgates open. So I want to use that thing, but you need kind of the right person, Rich says, Ask Me Anything by Josh Spector does that. Guest comes and asks him questions. Yeah, I've actually tried. I did an Ask Me Anything, whatever it was, show 700, show 600. And I don't know, something went weird. I mean, they didn't ask bad questions. It was, what's the best microphone? Kind of the stuff we do here.
Yeah.
But anyway, speaking of the awesome supporters, I was in the middle of saying this, that Ecamm has a cool option where I can basically go, hey, keep the live stream going over here, but show me the back end over here where I went in. So now when I go to the slide, at the first slide, because it dawned on me, we were on the last slide and I needed to rewind this. So I was able to go, hey, Ecamm, keep doing what you're doing. And I'm going to go over here and back up these slides so I can now go, hey, if you like to be an awesome supporter, it's super easy. You can do that. And my slides are now in order, where before I would have had to go, hold on, I got to back these up. So that's pretty cool. Ecamm for the win. But this show is brought to you by, speaking of the School of Podcasting, brought to you by the School of Podcasting, where you get your courses, you get your coaching, unlimited, by the way, and an awesome, awesome community. Use the coupon code COACH and save on either a monthly or yearly subscription. I also found out at Podcast Movement, I need to grossly raise my prices. I'm slowly turning into the Walmart of podcasting. This show runs on Podpage. If you want to check it out, my affiliate link is trypodpage.com. If you want to learn Podpage, go to learnpodpage.com. And I just mentioned Ecamm. If you're wondering how we're doing all these fun camera switching things, well, that's Ecamm and a little thing called a StreamYard, but you can check it out at askthepodcastcoach.com/Ecamm. And if you need more Jim Collison, and who doesn't? Because, hey, we went like a week without Jim Collison. That's hard to do, man. Just go over to theaverageguy.tv and check out Home Gadget Geeks. And it's time for the Wheel O' Names. So let me...
Yes, we're part.
Here we go.
I wait for this every week. I missed it last.
You're just like, hey, Dave, what's the website? I want to spin the wheel just for fun.
Could you just spin the wheel for me?
Yeah.
Could you just spin the wheel?
So will it be Max? Will it be Felix? Will it be Ross? Will it be, all these fun people? Well, here, just so people don't think it's fixed, I will click on shuffle. And now I will spin the Wheel O' Names. Round and round and round it goes. And it is the one and only... No.
Oh,
Pro,
so close.
Yeah, Radio Free Pro Wrestling. So if you're into pro wrestling, it's the place you got to go. I'll put a link in the show notes later, but thank you for being an awesome supporter. We deeply appreciate that. And if we switch back, oh wait, I got to go here. This is the one thing, I can't get the Wheel of Names off the screen. There we go. So with that said, does this show save you time? Does it save you money? Does it save you headaches? Does it keep you educated? Well, then maybe you should consider being an awesome supporter at askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. So thanks for all those people. We do appreciate that. The chat room is, we got them going today. John Jamingo again. I just bought Hindenburg Pro, and now I'm going through the How Do I Do That blues. I would pay for an hour of coaching. If you join the School of Podcasting using the coupon code COACH, there's a class on Hindenburg Pro. And in fact, there's especially for editors, one of the coolest things is somebody sends you a file and you were hoping you would get separate files, but doggone it, you didn't. You go into Hindenburg, you have it transcribe, and you name the different people. So it's, track one is, or this person, when this person talks, it's Dave. When this person talks, it's Jim. So now Hindenburg knows there are two speakers, and you can go take that transcript and that audio and split it into two separate tracks. And when I saw that, I was like, that is magic mojo kind of stuff. So now I can, mute the dog barking on Jim's track, all sorts of stuff. Wait, did you do this, Jim? Chris is saying you went on social media news live.
This coming up.
There you
Next
go.
week I'm on.
The one and only
Jeff
Jeff
was
C.
Jeff was on Home Gadget Geeks. We talked about the VR stuff, the Apple VR stuff. Vision Pro, I think is what they call it. And then a couple weeks ago, 5 weeks ago now, maybe, I took 3 weeks off. So it's weird how all of a sudden time can catch up to you. And then, so yes, I will be on his show. Jeff, looking forward to it.
Talking about being rusty, right? We didn't forget.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I'm not sure I've taken 3 weeks in a while.
Yeah, it's usually one here, one there,
It felt good though. It felt really good. It did. It was hard, but it felt really, and I didn't plan it 3 weeks. It's just, I took 1 week off, and then the next week I was like, I think I'm going to take another week off. And then I've had a lot of stuff going on personally. And so it was just nice to have have a group that joins me live, and they just say, hey, I'm on a spring break, and they were like, hey, enjoy your time off. It was nice.
Well, Jim, are you ready to run with scissors? I'm going to drag a sound bite. Don't stream copyrighted music is what Ecamm is telling me. I'm not. Well, it's funny that question comes up, but we got this question from Bread to Perfection with Kenny. Troy, boy, I really need new glasses. Troyano says, if someone were to mention your name in their podcast, is it okay to take the soundbite and play it on yours? So like if Adam Curry was on Decentralized TV and the guy said this was cool, by the way, in my opinion, except I don't think that's the clip I want. It's not. So we'll fade that out. It's named Adam Curry says nice things, but apparently that's the whole thing, not just the clip. But Adam Curry said very nice things about me on Decentralized TV. And so I went to Decentralized TV, which is on the Brayton, something with a B network. And when you go there, there are so many squares of shows that they have on this network. And the one thing I could not find, and it kind of drove me nuts, was the button that said contact. Like nothing, no contact at all. And so I looked and clicked on this, finally found they have their own decentralized, I think it's TV, might be .tv, found still no contact. So I went to Twitter, found the host name, said, hey, I saw where Adam was on your show. If I put a link to your website and to Adam's website, can I play this clip? And I got no reply. And so there are times, I don't know if it's legally, I'm not a lawyer, nor do I even play one on TV. But when Adam Curry says nice things about you, I'm going to play that until somebody tells me not to at this point. I'm going, now, does that make it right? I did my due diligence. I did reach out. I will check again today. But, maybe they're not on Twitter, but I don't know. Maybe if you had a contact page, now on the other hand, this might be, it's big time. If you are not a fan of right-wing politics, this is not the website for you. It's so right, it's almost left kind of thing. And
Full circle.
Yeah, exactly. Which is fine by me. I don't really care. It just, somebody said, look, if I'm looking to get started and I just needed simple path to start a podcast. And Adam's like, hold on, let me interrupt you. I got it. I should have mentioned this guy earlier. Dave Jackson, blah, blah, blah. And he went on, he's trained more people than I know. Yada, yada, yada. So it was really, really nice because he said that before, but I was sitting next to him. And so the fact that he said it just out of nowhere, I was like, man, that was really cool. I got to grab that clip. So I don't know.
If you use it, you tried. That trying doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, that's not going to save me in court.
It's you could claim fair use, but that's what you would say if legal proceedings was, again, I'm not a lawyer and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so this is not legal advice. If they, and then, you listen, it's just if they choose to do something about it, if they're like, hey, wait a minute, we didn't give you permission to do this, and then the fight is on. Right. So you did all the right things. I'd be hesitant. I'd make sure it was in some places that I could pull it back if I needed to. Right. Those kinds of things until you get 100% permission to be able to.
I'm going to insert it into the School of Podcasting using the dynamic tools in Libsyn so that if they go, hey, I can just go take that out of rotation. Never mind. Yeah. I think he's already left. Craig left us a question here. Would you? No,
he's still here.
He's still here.
Okay. Anyways, go ahead.
What would you recommend for migrating a podcast website from WordPress to Squarespace? What are you doing on WordPress? Is there e-commerce going on? Is it a lot of A/B split? If it's just a website and it's a podcast, and I don't say this because they're technically not a sponsor. It's just my affiliate. Try podpage.com. I would, if nothing else, put the feed in there, see, because you can see what your website would look like. I would move to Podpage. Squarespace, Wix, what else is out there? There are a few other ones. Elementor now offers hosting. It's been a while since I played with Squarespace. Wix, back when they remember when they had all sorts of commercials on and how easy it was to build a website with Wix. And look, I go back to the days of Dreamweaver. I know my way around building a website. I'm no master guru, and Wix, I just was like, it just seemed like 3 different teams built their platform. Like, this is the one for the blog. And like all of a sudden the interface would change because I was doing a blog and then I would go to make something else and the interface, it just seemed, I was like, wow, who designed it? It really looked like 3 different teams built it. Now, that may have changed, but that was probably a year ago. Squarespace is pretty. The thing that I found somewhat frustrating with Squarespace is all their templates are for consulting or hotels or restaurants or knickknacks. Like there was no podcast Squarespace template. And so you're kind of trying to squeeze a podcast into a template that isn't really meant for it. And the other thing that got me out of Squarespace was, you're always like, if you do PayPal, right, it's 2.9% plus 30 cents. Well, and I kind of went, wait, that can't be right. Squarespace then tacked on more fees. And I'm like, but I'm already paying you $20 a month. Why are you dinging me on my e-commerce? And their answer was, because we can. I would double check that. I haven't played with Squarespace in about 3 years. It's been a while. But, and then the other question I would ask is, what are you using on WordPress? Because I'm not a huge fan of WordPress, but in fact, I was laughing.
And how old is it? How old is your WordPress instance?
Yeah, because there are some themes that are like, I saw somebody the other day that was using, I forget what it was. There was this software you could buy, and you would put in the colors and some artwork, and it would spit out a theme that you would then upload to WordPress. And it looks very 1994-ish. And I went to somebody's website. I'm like, oh my God, I haven't seen that layout in forever. So the thing I hate about most WordPress, like I like Elementor. To me, there's like Divi, which is what Mark uses when he designs your website, gives you so much insane control over your website that I just go, I don't need that much control. And then there's Gutenberg, which doesn't do enough, at least for me. And then I found Elementor, which is pretty cool. Very much the three bears. It's kind of in the middle. I just hate the fact that with Elementor, Beaver Builder, Divi, some of these site builders that like once you go, I'm going with you, you kind of married it. Because if you turn it off, any page you used, unless there's a trick that I don't know of. Yeah, Larry says, I love Elementor. Yeah, everybody's like, Elementor. Well, I don't know if I have. I'm almost going to guess if you go to supportthishow.com/Elementor. Yeah, everybody's loving Elementor. So that may be, Dan says there's a lot of customizations WordPress can do that Squarespace can't. So migrating can't always work. It depends. And I was laughing last night because I was like, I haven't really played with Elementor in a while. And oh my God, you now have, and this is a lot of things I'm seeing in podcasting, where they have a core service. Like here's your Elementor, and for an extra $5 a month, you can go Elementor Pro, and it's just every widget you could think of. Like I didn't realize I've been looking for the perfect pop-up because I hate my pop-up on my website. I can make one with Elementor. I was talking with somebody, and he uses quizzes on his website. I go, what are you using to make the quiz? He's like, Elementor. So I was actually thinking of moving the School of Podcasting onto Podpage. And after playing with Elementor, I'm like, I think I just need to spend a weekend and I could kind of get things where I want to on WordPress. Because I don't want to get completely off WordPress because that's a good skill to have, even though mine is pretty rusty. Jim, what do you, I know you have Podpage for something, but do you have any WordPress sites anymore?
Yeah, the averageguy.tv is all WordPress.
Okay.
And then I have I'm using Podpage as just a landing page for homegadgetgeeks.com.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
it's great. If I had to move, I'd probably move to Podpage.
Yeah.
Just to be honest, but because it's low maintenance. If you want to do a lot of things to your website, doesn't matter who you use. They're all lacking. You're all going to write some code. I think that's the most common complaint I hear from developers. I used to work with a bunch of them. Is they would always say, no matter what, if you can customize them, none of the platforms are easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. It takes kind of a developer to work through some of the problems that you have on the sites. Of course, Podpage and Squarespace are kind of designed for the average person, or at least that's what they say they are, right? And so, the heavy customization people are like, oh, I can't customize that stuff. Yeah, it's not designed to be customized. I mean, the developers would say, yes, just contact me and we'll figure out how to get it done, right?
Right.
In some of those cases. But where WordPress was tried to be everything to all people. It would try to be like, hey, 1-click setup, or you can have 10-click setup, or you can have 1,000,000 click setup,
Right.
kind of thing. And it, and then it allowed, and this is always the case on open source, that it allowed ultimate customizations. As many, anybody could write anything, any plugins, any stuff. And then the average guy comes to it and they're like, God, what plugins do I use? Then you have to start all the conversations about all the plugins and
Right.
all the, right. And then the whole ecosystem is built around that. And then there's a few people so it's just, it's insanely difficult. It's insanely difficult.
Well, and then you better have a backup. I always tell people, like, if you're using WordPress, and make sure. I had a card on, I use, I think it's WP Manage, or I have something like that, whatever it is. And it makes an automatic backup every day, because I'm always waiting for the white screen of death. And my card had expired, and they had since not backed up my stuff. And so luckily, Christian over at Maple Grove Partners, because I totally wrecked my website one day. And I emailed him like, dude, this is urgent. The website's just, it's my fault. I clicked the wrong button. And he had me back up on him real quick. But
he has backups. He doesn't believe in other people's backups.
So would you recommend migrating oh, that's the first one. He had another question saying, here it is. Would Mark be the person to reach out to help me move off WordPress? Yeah, if you're going off WordPress, I guess. I'm not sure how versed Mark is on Squarespace, but he can definitely help you move. He's in some cases, I think Mark's working on a service where he'll actually kind of be your, like, for a monthly fee, like he's going to have like podcast websites where you, like, it's almost like a template, and then you'll pay him a monthly fee to host it. You'll still own it, but it's WordPress based, because he realizes that WordPress is great. As Jim said, it does everything for everyone. And then you're like, I just need like this. So the chat room's throwing in their things. Dave said I used Thrive Themes, had to get married to it and spent a good amount of money. He says, I use Podpage for my current show only because of our web team is under contract and they don't know podcasting. Podpage gave me an easy to use, easy to manage platform. And then Larry says, I push all my clients to Podpage to get them started. And since I've just said Podpage 50,000 times, don't forget, try podpage.com the next time you're signing up. That would be great. That's my affiliate link. Jeff says, back in the day, I used to host Tailwind's show. And when we reviewed people's Pinterest pins, I think this is a different conversation. People's Pinterest pins, they were the most, yes, I clicked the wrong button. It's that wacky chat room.
Hello, Jeff. Get your comment in. There you go.
Well, he's one of the kings of Pinterest. I had him on my show talking about Pinterest. So, so it's tough. I like WordPress. It can do everything in Elementor. It just was one of those things where when I went to make my pop-up last night at, like, I don't know, 12:30, I was like, yeah, you know what? If you start this, you're going to go to bed at 3:00 in the morning because you need to go watch a video. And that's really the key with all website stuff. So as much as they go, it's super easy, build a website with 3 clicks. The only thing I know that's that easy is, again, Podpage. I've walked somebody through making a website in about 10 minutes. So he says, Craig says, I'll check out with Mark. I'd love to have everything under the Squarespace roof. Well, yeah, it's definitely doable. The one thing, since we mentioned Wix, and it's so dumb. Wix has this really,
oh my God.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. Can you pay Squarespace to help? Yeah, they should have a team that goes, oh, moving from WordPress, we can help. Yeah, because I know
they'd be motivated to help you. Yeah.
Just when I moved to Maple Grove Partners, Christian moved me for free. Why wouldn't he? It took him, because he's, master guru. It's like, database call, and there it is. You're done. So, yeah.
I love when I work with him. He goes, wait. He just says, wait. And then you hear click the keyboard, doing its thing. And then he's like, okay, check it now. I love that.
Now he brought up a whole point here. I'm nervous about moving my feed over there. I would not move my feed over there. So if you're on Libsyn or Podbean or Buzzsprout, because in the same way that I don't have my dentist fix my car, I don't want Squarespace. They make beautiful websites, their feeds, not so beautiful. And yeah, so now if your feed is on WordPress, I would redirect it to my host. That's where I mean, back in the day, your host might go out of business. Okay, if you're using, Bill's House of Podcasts for your host, or but don't use those people for your feed. But I would redirect it back to your host. Your host isn't going out of business, and if they do, they'll give you at least a week to move it. So, and then somebody says here, I realize we got to wrap up here. Am I going to be at Podcast Movement Evolutions in 2025? That'll be in Chicago, by the way. Then, as far as I know, it should be. John Jamingo is now a member of the School of Podcasting. Well, hallelujah, buddy. Yeah, check out the Hindenburg course.
Was that the bell? Was that the bell? Somebody joining School of Podcasting?
I don't know.
I think let's just say it was.
Let's say it was. Well, if not, it was great. Yeah.
Welcome, John.
Yeah, and then somebody says, I humbly applaud Maple Grove for their help in migration. Yep.
There's nobody better. There's nobody better on the back end. And he's amazing.
I know I'm talking about Bill's House of Podcasting. Larry says, look, don't attack Bill. He's a good guy. All right, I won't. Enough attacking on people today. But
Jimmy D's hosting. Jimmy D.
So Jim, speaking of theaverageguy.tv, what's coming up?
Yeah, I took, like I said, I mentioned I took 3 weeks off, and I actually have nothing scheduled right now, which is kind of scary and freeing all at the same time, So this weekend, not only do I need to work on my taxes, but I need to start lining up some guests for Home Geeks. So last episode with Aaron Lawrence has been posted. It was super popular. Check it out today, homegadgetgeeks.com.
Yeah, on the School of Podcasting, I was going to play an interview with Katie Brinkley. She's a social media guru, and I think I'm going to do kind of a what I learned at Podcast Movement kind of thing. Some of the things I liked, some of the things I didn't like. Probably a rant on YouTube again, because, those are always fun. And just there's a lot. I have a cool because of my podcast story, all sorts of little pieces, parts. Sometimes I call those like a stew, because it's like, here's like 6 things I want to talk about. None of them are big enough to be an entire episode. So I smush them all together, and then we'll use Katie for the following week. But as always, thank you to the awesome chat room that is here. We are here live every Saturday. AskThePodcastCoach.com/live, 10:30 Eastern time. And I'm not going anywhere that I know of. I'm going to be at the Content Entrepreneur Expo in Cleveland, but I'm not going as a Libsyn person. That's coming out of my pocket. That's May. So if you're in Cleveland and you're going to that event, let me know. I might even drag you down to Akron for some Luigi's Pizza. But that would be a drive. That'd be like 2 hours, an hour down to get pizza and then an hour back. So it'd have to be really good pizza. But anyway, we will see you next week with another fun-filled episode of Ask the Podcast Coach.